The summer storm had rolled in without warning, turning the Arizona sky from brilliant blue to angry gray in minutes. Jake Martinez stood at the window of his childhood home, watching sheets of rain hammer against the glass. He'd driven 6 hours from Phoenix to help his parents move, only to find them already gone, off to check on his grandmother in Tucson. The house felt strange in its emptiness, half-packed boxes creating shadows in rooms that had once been filled with noise and life. Jake had just pulled off his rain-soaked shirt when he heard the front door slam open. "Hello? Mr. and Mrs. Martinez." Jake froze. He knew that voice, would have recognized it anywhere even after 8 years. "Anyone home?" Emma Sullivan appeared in the living room doorway, her honey-blonde hair plastered to her face, her white sundress completely soaked through and clinging to every curve. She stopped dead when she saw him. "Jake!" "Emma." His mouth went dry. She'd been his older sister's best friend growing up, always around, always just out of reach. The girl he'd had a desperate secret crush on through high school. But she'd left for college when he was just 16, and he'd forced himself to forget about her. Except he never really had. "I'm so sorry," she said, hugging herself as water dripped onto the hardwood floor. "The storm came out of nowhere. I was jogging past and saw your parents' car in the driveway. I thought—" She paused, really looking at him now. "You're not 16 anymore. Neither are you." The words came out rougher than he intended. She was 28 now, he calculated quickly. He was 24. Those 4 years that had seemed like an insurmountable gap when he was a teenager suddenly felt like nothing at all. "I should go," Emma said, but she was shivering visibly now. "You'll catch pneumonia." Jake grabbed a blanket from one of the boxes. "My parents are gone for the weekend, but you should dry off. I don't want to impose." "Emma." He stepped closer, wrapping the blanket around her shoulders. His hands brushed her bare arms, and electricity that had nothing to do with the storm crackled between them. "You're freezing." She looked up at him, her green eyes wide. "When did you get so tall? When did you get so beautiful?" The words escaped before he could stop them. Pink flooded her cheeks. "Jake, I'm sorry. That was inappropriate. Let me get you some dry clothes." He turned away quickly, heading for the stairs. "Jake, wait." He stopped but didn't turn around. "You can't just say something like that and walk away." "I shouldn't have said it at all. You're my sister's friend." I'm what?" She'd moved closer. He could hear the soft pad of her bare feet on the floor. "You're Emma Sullivan," he said quietly. "You're the girl I spent years trying not to think about." The silence stretched between them, filled only with the sound of rain against the windows and his own thundering heartbeat. "Years." Her voice was soft, uncertain. Jake finally turned to face her. The blanket had slipped from her shoulders. Her sundress was still soaked, and he forced his eyes to stay on her face. "Since I was 14 years old. You were just a kid." "I'm not a kid anymore." Something shifted in her expression. Surprise giving way to something deeper, more dangerous. "No," she agreed, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're definitely not." The storm raged outside, but inside the house, the air felt impossibly still, charged with 8 years of unspoken tension. "I should really get you those dry clothes," Jake managed, though his feet refused to move. Emma took a step toward him, then another. "Maybe I don't want dry clothes." "Emma, tell me something, Jake. If I wasn't your sister's friend, if I was just some girl you met, what would you do right now?" His hands clenched at his sides. "You know I can't answer that." "Can't? Or won't?" She was close enough now that he could see the drops of water clinging to her eyelashes, could smell the rain and vanilla scent of her skin. "This is a bad idea," he said, even as every muscle in his body tensed with the effort of not reaching for her. "The best ones usually are." She placed her hand on his bare chest, right over his racing heart. "You're not 16 anymore, Jake, and I'm not off limits." "What about Rachel?" His sister's name felt like a lifeline. "Rachel's been trying to set us up for 2 years. She thinks I didn't notice." Emma's lips curved into a smile. "She's going to be insufferable when she finds out she was right." "Finds out what?" Instead of answering, Emma rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. For one frozen moment, Jake couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Then something inside him snapped. His arms came around her, pulling her close as he kissed her back with 8 years of pent-up longing. She was soft and warm despite her wet clothes, fitting against him like she'd been made to be there. Emma's fingers tangled in his hair, and she made a small sound against his mouth that sent heat coursing through his veins. He walked her backward until she hit the wall, his hands framing her face as he deepened the kiss. "Jake!" she breathed when they finally broke apart. The clothes, right? Clothes. But he couldn't seem to make himself let go of her. She laughed, the sound breathless and delighted. "You're not making this easy." "Good." He kissed her again, softer this time, savoring it. "Because this isn't easy for me either. Do you know how many times I dreamed about this?" "Tell me." She traced his jawline with her fingertips. "Too many to count." He caught her hand, pressed a kiss to her palm. "Every time you came over to visit Rachel. Every time you smiled at me like I was actually worth noticing. Every time you left, and I had to pretend it didn't matter." "Jake." Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I noticed. God, I noticed. But you were so young, and I was leaving for college, and it would have been wrong. But it's not wrong now." "No," she agreed. "It's not wrong now." He kissed her again, slower this time, taking his time to explore and discover. She tasted like summer rain and promises, like every fantasy he'd ever had and something even better, something real. When they broke apart this time, Emma was shivering again, but he suspected it had nothing to do with being cold. "Okay," Jake said, his voice rough. "Dry clothes, before you freeze." Such a gentleman. But there was heat in her eyes that belied the teasing words. "Give me 5 minutes to find something that'll fit you." He forced himself to step back. "Jake." He looked back. "I'm glad I got caught in the rain." He smiled, really smiled, for the first time in months. "So am I." 20 minutes later, Emma emerged from the bathroom wearing one of his old college t-shirts and a pair of sweatpants that she'd had to roll up several times. Her damp hair hung in waves around her face, and she'd never looked more beautiful. Jake had changed into dry jeans and managed to pull himself together, though his heart still raced every time he looked at her. "Better?" he asked. "Much." She padded over to where he stood in the kitchen. "Though I have to say, you look pretty good shirtless." "Emma." "Too much." She grinned. "Sorry. This is surreal. Good surreal, but surreal." "I know the feeling." He handed her a mug of hot tea. "I keep waiting to wake up. If you're dreaming, I'm dreaming too." She accepted the mug, then set it down on the counter. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything. Why didn't you ever say something after I moved back to town?" Jake ran a hand through his hair. "Because you were Rachel's friend. Because I thought you'd laugh at me. Because I spent so many years telling myself you were out of reach that I didn't know how to believe otherwise. I wouldn't have laughed." Emma moved closer. "For the record, I started noticing you about 3 years ago. Really noticing you, Rachel invited me to your college graduation, and you walked across that stage and I thought." She paused, color rising in her cheeks. "What did you think?" "I thought, when did Jake Martinez become the most attractive man I've ever seen?" His breath caught. "Emma." "Then I felt terrible because you were still Rachel's little brother in my head. Except you weren't little anymore, and I couldn't stop thinking about you." She looked up at him through her lashes. "I may have asked Rachel about you. A lot. She never said anything, because I made her promise not to. I was afraid I'd scare you off if you knew how I felt." Jake let out a laugh that was half disbelief, half wonder. "All this time, we've been dancing around each other." "Apparently." Emma reached up to touch his face. "But we're not dancing anymore." "No," he agreed, covering her hand with his. "We're not." The storm had eased to a gentle patter against the windows. Outside, the world was washed clean and new. Inside, something equally momentous was beginning. "Stay," Jake said quietly. "At least until the rain stops." "The rain has stopped." Then stay anyway. Emma smiled, slow and sweet and full of promise. Okay. They spent the afternoon talking, really talking, making up for years of missed opportunities. Jake learned that Emma had moved back to town to open her own bookstore, that she loved old movies and chocolate chip cookies and thunderstorms. Emma learned that Jake had given up his job in Phoenix to be closer to his family, that he was starting his own architecture firm, that he'd never stopped thinking about the girl with green eyes who used to steal cookies from his mother's kitchen. As evening fell, they found themselves on the couch, Emma curled against Jake's side like she belonged there. I should probably go home soon, she said, making no move to leave. Probably, Jake agreed, tightening his arm around her. Rachel's going to flip out when she finds out about this. Let her flip out. She'll be thrilled. Emma tilted her head back to look at him. Are you thrilled? I'm terrified, he admitted, and happier than I've been in years. Good answer. She pressed a kiss to his jaw. I'm terrified too. Yeah, because this feels like something real, something that matters. Jake turned to face her fully, his hand cupping her cheek. It is real, Emma. I've spent too many years pretending I didn't feel this way to pretend anymore. Then don't pretend. She leaned into his touch. I don't want either of us to pretend. No more pretending, he promised, and sealed it with a kiss. This time, there was no hesitation, no uncertainty. Just the two of them, finally on the same page after years of missed connections and unspoken feelings. When they finally broke apart, Emma was smiling. So what happens now? Now? Jake traced her lower lip with his thumb. Now I take you to dinner tomorrow night, and the night after that, and as many nights as you'll let me. That's a lot of dinners. I have 8 years to make up for. Then I guess you'd better get started. She kissed him again, soft and sweet. But Jake, yeah, you don't have anything to make up for. We're exactly where we're supposed to be. And looking into her eyes, Jake believed her. Sometimes the best things in life were worth waiting for. Sometimes they were worth all the years of longing and uncertainty. Sometimes, when lightning strikes, you just have to be brave enough to stand in the rain. 3 months later. I knew it, Rachel crowed, pointing an accusing finger at Jake and Emma as they walked into the family barbecue hand in hand. I knew you two would be perfect together. You're so subtle, Ratch, Jake said dryly. Subtle is overrated. His sister pulled them both into a hug. I'm just glad you two finally figured out what everyone else could see. Emma laughed, leaning into Jake's side. How long did you know? About Jake? Since he was 14. About you? Rachel grinned. Since you asked me 17 different questions about him after his graduation. I did not ask 17 questions. Okay, fine. It was more like 27. Jake kissed the top of Emma's head. I love you both. But you're both terrible at being sneaky. Who said anything about being sneaky? Emma looked up at him, her green eyes dancing. I'm pretty sure I was obvious. You weren't obvious. You were perfect. Gross, Rachel said, but she was beaming. Okay. You two are officially the cutest couple ever, and I'm taking full credit. As his sister bounced away to tell their parents the news, Jake pulled Emma closer. The late summer sun was warm on their faces, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled. A reminder of the storm that had brought them together. Any regrets? Emma asked. Only that it took us so long to get here. Jake kissed her softly. But we have plenty of time to make up for it. A lifetime, Emma agreed. And as the first drops of rain began to fall, they stood together, no longer running for cover. Sometimes the best moments in life happen when you're caught in the storm.